Okay, and we are back, Uptown Films podcast. We are joined today by Zoe Simone. She's a writer, director, co-producer. She's a screenwriter, director from Houston, Texas. She recently graduated from the Rita and Burton Goldberg Department of Dramatic Writing at NYU's Tisch School of the Arts, where she concentrated in screenwriting and minored in producing for film. In 2023, she was one of 24 selected to join the department's graduate cohort, class of 25. In 2020, she received an honorable mention from the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation for her original screenplay, Havana. In 2021, Zoe was a recipient of the Venable Herden Award for Excellence in Screenwriting. In 2022, she was one of the 6 selected to participate in the Athena Film Festival's Screenwriters Lab. Zoe's work has been featured in the 2021 Tisch Undergraduate Screenplay Showcase, the 2022 Sloan Film Summit, and Women in Hollywood Showcase. Her latest short film, The Fourth Friend, had its world premiere at the 2023 edition of FEST, New Directors, New Films Festival, located in Espinho, Portugal, where it competed for the Silver Lynx Prize in Fiction. It is now available to watch on Film Shortage. Zoe, welcome.
Thank you guys for having me. Happy to be here. I apologize for that extremely insufferable bio.
No, it was great. I practiced it yesterday. I was like, okay, I might slip up at the Sloan Spino part, but
Yeah.
other than that.
It's a lot. I'm pretty sure I had to write that bio for like a class because they're like preparing you for real life. So they're like, have a bio, have a whatever. But I'm like, I would never, whatever. I'm sorry. Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah,
Thank you for joining us.
It's great to have you.
Yeah, we've worked before. You led a workshop on acquisition.
When you met me, I was employed, which is crazy.
The life of a filmmaker.
So much has changed.
So you were in between things at the time, right?
Yeah, like I think when we maybe initially talked, I was telling Max you like slid into my LinkedIn DMs and
I totally
in a
did.
totally non-creepy way, but
In a very professional way.
I think I was there still full time. I was working at a distribution company full time, and then like a lot of stuff happened with that company, and I ultimately left to go to grad school. But yeah, times have changed. It's crazy.
Certainly they have, but you continue to make films. So I'd love to ask you, first question is, what do you think makes you an effective director?
Ooh, that is such a, that's difficult because you don't want to be like, oh, this is why I'm great. But like, no, I think for me, at this stage in my career, it's just kind of remembering that like, I'm just starting at this and therefore it's low stakes and therefore nothing really matters if the people around me aren't comfortable and having fun.
Yeah.
And so I know that to some people I can definitely come across as sort of like and like insane and like robotic and type A. And it's not that I'm not those things, but really once I get to set, I'm just like, I think making a movie is just kind of like throwing a party and you just need to make sure that everyone like has a good time and then gets home safe. So even when stuff is getting stressful, and maybe in my mind, I'm like going insane and imploding and freaking out. I don't ever want you to see that. And if you're not having fun, then I'm not having fun. And I think that just as a director, it's your responsibility to take care of people. And that's something that I prioritize that I hope makes me effective. Yeah.
Yeah, it's on a recent podcast, director Nicole Tay said, it's like being a host of a party. You want to make sure everyone is
True.
They're comfortable, they have a good time, but they also like know their roles, so to speak.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's that line between professionalism and relaxation, or the professionalism and like, comfort. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think like obviously I'm like nothing is more important to me than like making the movie, but again, like I recognize like I'm 25, like we're all just here for fun because we love doing this. I hope to be in a position in the future where like making movies is my job, like absolutely.
Totally.
But I think that we should recognize, especially today, it's such a privilege to make a movie that if you're acting like a total asshole on a power trip, like get over yourself, you know, like none of this is like that important or that serious. Like be kind to people, be respectful, have fun. We're all lucky to be here, you know?
Wanted to ask next, what made you want to focus? Let's dive into your short film At Night, which you shot in the Bronx. What made you want to make a film like At Night? Because focusing on watching the film, there are certain binaries, and you talk about it in your director's statement, light and dark. What made you want to make a film like At Night?
There are so many things that ultimately led to me kind of creating that story. On a literal level and a technical level, I wanted to pursue the challenge of shooting something entirely at night.
Yeah.
I was just interested in like, how would I do that? You know, and I didn't go to film school, so I didn't come up with any kind of like background education and like lighting and camera. Like that's all still really, really new to me. And so I was kind of just like, I would like to learn how to do this. But I'm just like, yeah, light and dark. I mean, that's a binary and a dichotomy that we're facing every single day.
Right. It's this archetypal kind of story.
Yeah, I think there's something really just like base about it in terms of like it's sort of, yeah, we're already like living in that sort of binary. So yeah, I was interested on a technical level. But ultimately I knew I wanted to work with this actor, Adam. I knew I wanted to write a part for him. I was fascinated by these ideas of masculinity, toxic masculinity, mental health, isolation, especially living in New York, you know, how it's really possible to feel so alone here.
Yeah.
What does that look like? But also, like, I had moved back to New York after COVID in the fall of 2021. I was living on my own for the first time in a neighborhood called Bushwick, which is a great neighborhood. And I would wake up really early in the morning and I'd go to my like local park, and the park had this basically like a loop kind of walking path that was like a third of a mile, and I used to just walk in circles in that park every single morning for like a year straight.
Yeah.
And it just became a really important part of my day. And eventually I just think that motion of like moving in circles just kind of got me down this path and thinking about, you know, the metaphor of like what that means. And I just think growing up kind of feels like going in circles.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, there were so many things that kind of led to that. Yeah.
That's interesting. Like thematically, like what you touched on, I did sense that in the movie, and it's interesting because like so much of it takes, I guess it externalizes these like social tensions between like a lot with these social tensions you see between men who are in competition with each other, especially, and like so much of it felt kind of like sci-fi or a horror movie, like. Even if nothing explicitly violent happened.
Men are so scary, though. Let's say it, yeah.
It's a pretty heavy movie. It's like, I forgot what I was going to say.
I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, it's fine. Shit happens.
I thought there were robots at first. I was like, what is
it
going
legit
on? What's
did
with the
feel
light
like
on the
that.
chest,
Light.
bro?
I think it takes people and types who seem familiar and just like times hollows them out, it seems. Like influence-wise, we talked before the podcast about this. I was very curious. I kept sensing like Spielberg influence, but I want to hear like just the full scope of like what you feel like influenced this, and like who are some directors you love.
Yeah. When it comes to At Night, I think that I would be remiss if I did not admit that the biggest inspiration was absolutely Beau Travail by Claire Denis.
Yeah.
That's a film with a predominantly male cast. There's maybe like one woman. It follows these soldiers in the desert.
Yeah.
It's adapted from an opera, so there's like very little dialogue, and the
Nice.
whole film is sort of like this dance, this movement. and we're like very closely watching these men go through these like repetitive drills, but then narratively you're following the like head soldier of this group
Yeah.
and the tension he has with this young newer soldier.
Yeah.
And I was so fascinated by
That's
that.
interesting.
Yeah, I mean, because now you're like, oh, that's what your movie is, and I'm like, yeah.
I've wanted to see this movie for some time, but I feel like this is
Yeah.
even more of an impetus to watch it.
I genuinely think it is the greatest movie ever made.
Wow, that's a
Period.
bold
Damn,
statement.
nice.
Yeah, and like full stop. If I was ever lucky enough to contribute to like the Sight and Sound list, like that would be my one for sure.
Nice.
So that was a huge inspiration, just this idea of like physicality and everything. But I also, there's a little bit of like Todd Field, like Little Children, especially with how we did like the running. One of the biggest inspirations is actually a documentary called called Tokyo Olympiad, which basically during the Tokyo Olympics decades ago, this camera crew was tasked with like filming a documentary that like made Japan look really good. I'm also
Right.
like giving a very SparkNotes version of what this is.
Got
I'm not
it.
doing it justice, but
Wait, quick question.
Yeah.
Like, I've heard the film. Was it like I may be mixing up with another like
Tokyo
like
Olympiad.
like it was directed by multiple people, or was it just like one? I think it was like
was
Kone
just
Chikawa.
One guy, yeah. I do not remember his name. But it was sort of meant to kind of be this like, I don't want to say propaganda film, but they were like, we just want you to do like a really safe, nice, like
Patriotic.
yes, patriotic, thank you, thing, showcase our Olympics, whatever. And instead he just made this like insanely beautiful like art film. And it's like
That's interesting.
really long, and it's like intense slow motion close-ups. Really makes running look like art, and that was a huge inspiration for me.
Nice.
And then also, like, just to sort of address it, because this is the number one thing that gets projected onto me. People, it's funny, seem to think that like Fight Club is like the biggest inspiration.
I mean, I can see that. Even though I didn't sense that.
Yeah, and I'm like, and that's why I'm like, let me just say it. Let me just get it out there. On the record, I love David Fincher.
Yeah.
Fight Club would not even be in my like top 5 Fincher movies. Like I've seen it once. It's awesome, but like,
What's in the top 5?
oh my God. Gone Girl, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, Social Network, Zodiac,
I'm waiting for one more here.
and I feel like I'm forgetting a major one. Seven. Thank you.
I was like,
Thank
wait,
you.
that's not gonna be.
Yeah, man.
I like all of those. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good top 5.
And yeah, so like no shade to Fight Club, but I find it so funny because people are like, oh, you must love Fight Club. And I'm like, what? Like, okay, who? Like but of
Right,
course
it's-
now I can look at it and be like, oh, yeah, I see it. I get it.
It's
All that to
that-
say with the Spielberg thing,
Yeah.
it's funny how you might not even realize maybe something's unconsciously influencing you and has had this kind of like impact on you, even if you're not aware of it.
Yeah, like visually, I kept thinking of like Minority Report, or just like Spielberg in general, and like I kept thinking of Minority Report because there was like this slight. It's not like it's the only time he's dabbled with sci-fi.
Sure.
I mean, you could really say like conjured up images of AI, artificial intelligence, but
Right.
that spotlight visual you see in a lot of Spielberg stuff, the glowing lights, and like the sort of like high contrast photography, especially like in his like recent stuff. Like I'd say his films like since like for the past like 25 or so years have had that like deeply ingrained like contrast. It's like a little extra grainy, it's a little extra contrasty. It's funny you mentioned Fight Club. It's weird. Like Fight Club is so ubiquitous that I guess I didn't quite think of it, but I can see that.
Now
it's
you
like
can't unsee it.
I was actually thinking
didn't
about
quite-
Lord of the Flies when I was watching this. I was like,
Yeah,
what is who
it's-
made this
That
kid in
too.
charge?
Somebody
It's
called
these-
it the other day. They were like, "Oh, this is a concrete jungle, Lord of the Flies."
Yeah.
And I was like, "How
Yeah.
long
Yeah,
did you think
I
about
like
that?" Yeah.
it's this group of like guys who apparently like feel insecure enough to like try to reassert their machismo through this physical activity. I don't know. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, I
Emphasis
mean, maybe
on the
because,
insecurity for sure. Yeah.
I mean, there's like the Fight Club thing, of course, and it's like, it's in that. And it's like, it's creepy because it's so cult-like. I guess Fight Club, the Project Mayhem thing. But these characters, like Greg had mentioned, there's something so android-like and robotic.
Well, yeah, you have it
And
here.
it's especially eerie in like a familiar setting. This like you see the Yankee Stadium in the background,
Yeah.
like, and the connection to the Bronx is really fascinating. Like what drew you to setting in the Bronx, or even like showcasing like a notable
Yeah.
location.
It was never supposed to be at Yankee Stadium.
I remember we talked about this. I was like, this was supposed to be what, in
Never.
Soundview?
Dude,
Or other-
yeah, we briefly looked at Soundview. I did not want this to be like a New York film. And that's what's funny.
Yeah.
I actually think I just did this screening with like the Houston Film Commission, which is where I'm from, and thank you. But I was talking about like I actually think I was in some ways even more influenced by Texas when I was making the film, because that's where I'm from, in terms of how you communicate visual space to people.
That's
Texas is
interesting.
obviously enormous, and
Yeah.
Houston is this insane, massive, widespread like swamp. And when it came to like showing these boys in the track, like I wanted to make them feel so small and like look so small in this vastness. So all that to say, I really wanted to shoot on the most off the beaten path track. I had my sights set on this one in Coney Island because it just looked like this liminal space. Like it was like this could be anywhere, and that's exactly what I wanted.
It's void-like,
Void,
sort of.
absolutely
Yeah.
void-like. Then what happened?
And now you mentioned Coney Island, I thought of the Warriors.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So sorry.
Movie brain.
Trigger warning. But then what happened was when we filed for permits,
Yeah.
NYC Parks and Rec immediately was like, no.
Damn.
And honestly, more than no, they were like, no, and fuck you for asking. Pardon my language.
Jesus.
Yeah,
No,
that
it's
sounds like
fine.
that sounds like NYC
at
Parks Department.
war with NYC Parks for months. It was insane. And basically, I went through every single track in New York and frankly the tri-state area, every high school in Jersey, every single track you can think
Wow.
of, I tried to get.
Damn.
And we were really getting very close to the shoot, and we were about to have to delay. I explored Soundview briefly. That didn't work for many reasons, mostly because their lights didn't work, and we had a lot of safety concerns because we
There
had
you
a
go, Bronx.
mostly female crew. But ultimately, our last sort of hope was actually Van Cortlandt Park. And I was really into Van Cortlandt Park. I loved those like
Nice.
stone bleachers. I was like, this could be sick. It's gonna be like brutalist. Like, let's go. And I really thought we were gonna get Van Cortlandt, and then I kid you not, like we're talking day before the shoot.
Oh my God.
God,
Yeah, just you wait.
that's
Day
so much
before the shoot.
anxiety.
Van
Damn.
Cortlandt emails me and they're like, okay, no, we can't do this. And I was like, like, what are we gonna do? And then they said, but we talked to Yankee Stadium, they'll do it, here's their contact. And I was like, wait, what? I never even considered Yankee Stadium.
That is
They
bizarre.
weren't even on my list. I was like, that's a
hilarious.
national monument. Like,
Right.
I'm not shooting. Like, I didn't even want that. Like, because I didn't want there to be some kind of identifiable landmark. But then ultimately, when I spoke to the rep there, he was like, yeah, what you have to understand is like, we make movies here. We have the infrastructure to do this. Marvel shoots at Yankee Stadium. Like, we can get you the security. We can get you the lights. Like, yeah, it's going to cost you for sure. But they were like, but we can help you make your movie here. And it ended up, I think, working perfectly. And you'll notice in the film, we actually, for most of the film, try to kind of hide, which is very difficult.
Yeah.
We tried to hide the fact that they're right in front of Yankee
Yeah.
Stadium until, spoiler alert, the very, very end of the
I
film.
was gonna
Because
say,
I wanted to hopefully give the audience this experience of like seeing the world open up and kind of thinking, you know, okay, we're looking at these boys where they're in this liminal space. They could be anywhere.
Yeah.
Only at the very end to realize, oh, they've been in one of the biggest cities in the world this entire time, and they feel so alone. And they are just being crushed by the weight of this massive
That's interesting.
American icon. And So yeah, it
That's
was
really
never supposed to
fascinating.
happen that way, but that's the movie magic of it.
I love how that came about because you
Yeah.
just hit on multiple things to address here for those Uptown film audience. Trying to first get your location in that park is like, oh, we don't have the lights in Soundview. Soundview, get it together.
Soundview, get it together. It's a beautiful park. Like,
Beautiful
Yeah.
park,
come
and now the
on.
film at night did not. The night didn't come for you, Soundview.
Nope. You could have had it.
And then it's so like just to hear that waiting to get permit, waiting to get the location. It's had to be so much because you're wearing multiple hats here: the screenwriter, the producer. I mean, you have the
Yeah.
producer working with you, but could you talk about just that? I want to get into the fun facts of your film
Sure.
here, but can you talk a little bit more about that, like the preparation?
Yeah, I
part of
mean, well, and that is what's insane. And I forgot to say, like, I signed the Yankee Stadium location agreement the morning of the shoot.
That's amazing.
Wow.
The morning of the shoot, like we were that close. Like, it was
Who's the rep, if you don't mind me
scary.
asking?
It's so bad that I don't remember his name.
Oh, okay.
But he
I
was
know a few folks
amazing.
there.
He was incredible. I definitely think he's in the special thanks of the film. I am shocked that I'm like blanking on his name. He was a legend though. He really made it all happen. But yeah, I mean, I wrote the script for At Night in, I want to say June of 2023, like May, June. I know it was finished on June 16th, 2023, when I was actually in Portugal premiering my first short. I finished the script while I was there. And then we shot the film November of 2023. So it was actually,
Nice.
and then we finished it in May of 24. So it was pretty fast tracked. It was a very efficient production. And yeah, I mean, the first thing we pretty much got started on was location because I knew, like, I was like, I want to do this the right way. I don't want to guerrilla this. Like, if we're
Right.
going to be out there in the middle of the night, I've got a mostly female crew. I want us to be safe. I want us to be comfortable.
Yeah.
Let's get the permits. Let's make this legit.
Right.
And it just literally took that long for locations. And then, yeah, I mean, we had casting pretty much done by end of July, maybe early August. We had our first table read in September. It was, in some ways, like a really smooth process. And then, of course, it also wasn't. Like, I still have nightmares that we, like, don't have a location. And
Oh
also,
my
like,
God.
the track location wasn't even, like, the only hard part. The other, what we call the training ground, so all those scenes where they're, like,
Oh,
doing,
yeah.
like, jumping jack or whatever, the, like, exercises, we basically figured that out, like, day of. Like, that
my
location
God, really?
almost didn't happen.
Damn.
Locations were by far the hardest part of the entire process.
Yeah.
Is this shot entirely in the Bronx, or
No, so only the running is up here at Yankee in the Bronx, and then everything else is actually Bushwick, right around my apartment. The scenes where
Nice,
they're doing
nice.
the drills is at a park called Bushwick Playground.
Hell, it helps with the liminal space thing, you know.
Exactly. Well, and that's the amazing thing about Bushwick. When I first moved there, I was like, "Am I still in New York?" Like, and
That's interesting.
That's the cool thing about that neighborhood is, you know, it's predominantly Puerto Rican. The buildings are really short. The roads aren't in a grid. They're extremely crooked and haphazard. And
Yeah.
I think most people, if they weren't from New York, if they saw Bushwick, they would never think that's in New York, or even
That's
Brooklyn.
fascinating.
Even Brooklyn, it does not fit the visual language we have for that borough. So
well, I will say this: for a film that involves a lot of running and it's shot at night with the backdrop of Yankee Stadium, cinematic, and also you're wearing a Yankees cap, so
Yeah.
you're repping today. I love it.
I see. It's funny because like, there's a shot composition that recurs throughout the film that I really love that almost adds a layer of like, not to say deep focus is always funny. I mean, Orson Welles will use it a lot, but it's like. It's funny I mentioned Orson Welles because who I'm about to mention, Wes Anderson, loves Orson Welles. And I kept like, there's this deep focus wide shot of like all of them sitting together looking into the camera, which is Gio's point of view. And I find it kind of humorous because it just adds this undercurrent of like odd comedy. Because, I mean, certain ways the characters express themselves can sound a touch ridiculous in a good way.
thank you. I really appreciate that. That's a big thing that I really wanted to make present, is that ultimately these people, these boys are ridiculous. They are so silly. And it was really tough to kind of juggle that tonal balance because ultimately, like, I classify the film as a drama thriller. I like to write thriller hyphenates. I like suspense. I like mystery and tension and stakes. But you would be lying to yourself if you didn't look at these boys and like laugh at them. And there are moments where I do laugh at them. When we cut to that shot and Santi is like running shirtless, I still like, I'm like, oh my God. It is so silly because it's like, but the key is to them, to these guys, what they are doing is so serious. And that's why to them, I was like, you are not in a comedy. This is life or death. And the more they believe that, the funnier it is to us as the audience. Because we're like, oh my God. Like, can you actually imagine, like, walking your dog at, like, 10 at night and seeing, like, 8 boys?
That is funny.
Like, just, like,
There's that undercurrent of, like, the surreal. It's taking, like, it's taking, like, you know, like, I guess, like, behaviors in society, you know, like the competition in athletics, and it abstracts it. It's like they're running in like this like vague liminal space that's like, you know, you're not sure how real it is or not. It could be the inside of someone's subconscious, and it vaguely resembles a city. Yeah, and it's funny whenever I think of like vague, like, you know, like kind of the spaces. Like sometimes I think of like David Lynch.
Yeah, rest in peace.
Rest in peace. Yeah. Oof. Boy.
Yeah, moment of silence, honestly, for David
real.
Lynch. Like, yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Just found out as of today's recording yesterday.
Yeah. Whew. Man.
Yeah. Thank you, David Lynch, for everything. And frankly, I can think of like few artists who truly are immortalized through their work, like in the way he is. It like the fact that we have his movies like is such a comfort. You know, it's
pretty damn great.
Yeah, absolutely. But you were saying.
I want to say, how come you didn't tell me you were shooting near my home?
Probably because I was like on the brink of insanity, losing my mind. I don't think I would have known my own name if you could ask me. I was fighting for my life up here.
It came out beautifully, though. You did a perfect job. I mean, just some fun facts here. The entire film takes place outside. You shot it over the course of 4 consecutive overnights, and that's the operative word right there. Overnight shooting. Talk about that.
Yeah.
Like, what were the hours? How did you keep people? Because it looked like even without and I want to get to this really quick. There was the way, this is what I was saying, they look robotic. It's not just like they're running a lot and they look like they need to eat. Some movies want to make you eat when there's food in a movie. Either you want to eat or you're like, oh, I don't want to eat. This movie definitely doesn't make you want to eat.
Oh my God, yeah.
You like apparently put a mixture of water and oil consistently sprayed on the actors' faces to give off the illusion of sweat and to reflect the light for higher visibility in the dark.
Nice.
Genius. Overnight shooting.
Pretty dope.
Talk more about that.
Shout out Christina Dobre, our incredible DP. That was all her mastery. She is like the hidden genius behind the visual style of the film and being able to how we engaged with the darkness and with light. I all the credit to her. Oh my God, yeah, like. For one, it's like you never realize when you're writing it. Like when I first wrote the script, the boys were all wearing black. Oh. And pretty much the moment I had like my first meeting with Christina, she was like, well, we can't do that. And I was like, what do you mean? Why? They're cool. Like they're wearing black. Like, you know,
this is my vision.
Don't you get it? Like they're mysterious.
Happen.
And she was like, Zoe, if they're wearing black, we're not going to see them. They're going to be floating heads. And I was like, oh. and so it's funny, like that's how we landed on, okay, they're wearing this reflective silver, shout out H&M. And then that still wasn't enough. She was like, they're gonna need to wear lights. And I was like, Christina, this isn't Tron. Like, what are you talking about? You know, love Tron, by the way. But I was like, no, they can't wear lights. Like, that's way too much. And she was like, I'm telling you, like, just look around. We will not see them. Like, it's going to be so dark, Zoe. Do not underestimate it. So I get on Amazon, I end up finding these tiny little clip-on lights, and I was like, I don't know about this. And then I put them on, and I was like, that's kind of cool. And again, but never supposed to be there. And I think it really helped us, you know, stylistically and tonally when they have those lights. Because, yeah, it gives people kind of like a sci-fi vibe and a sort of dystopian effect. For me, I loved, and I really like Michael Mann, and he kind of does this in some
Michael
of his
Mann
work,
is
but
awesome.
like kind of reducing them to almost like points of data, like energy, and, you know, they're just these really small parts of like a larger mechanism.
Right. It's fitting. Like, man, it's always fascinating with those like smooth operator types of characters who,
Just guys being dudes, you know, just men in a situation.
and in gray, vague suits.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, so with the overnights, I mean, that was crazy. Our call time pretty much every night was like 8 p.m. We would be rolling camera by 9 or 10, and we'd be wrapping by like 5 in the morning.
Nice.
It was really, really intense. I did not sleep the whole 4 days. Like, I just didn't. I was also like fully enrolled in grad school and was like going to class.
Oh my
also.
That's
So
a
it was,
hustle.
like,
Right.
I had
That is
like
a
class
hustle.
on Friday morning, and then I like got out of class and just rolled right up to Yankee, and it was fine. Like, looking back, I'm like, that was 4 nights. You know, when you think about like a Nolan movie or even like Game of Thrones or just one of those insane productions, it's like they're doing that for weeks. Like,
Yeah, but
weeks
their
on
budget,
end.
their staff. I mean,
Hell
you're in
yeah,
grad school,
yeah.
True.
4 consecutive overnights.
That's
You gotta say, like, give yourself a pat on the back, and also
I
you're a
appreciate it.
certified masochist.
Oh my God, yeah, but that is the thing about directing too and filmmaking that I love, but that I think a lot of people don't realize is like it is a physically demanding job. Like there's especially when you do have like a small crew, like
Right.
there's a lot of heavy lifting, a lot of movement. You're standing for hours on end. You know, so I really do. I applaud. I'm so grateful to my whole team, like everyone who was there. And yeah, the boys, the actors, I mean, they are the unsung heroes of the film, but like I'm singing because they were incredible. They had such a positive attitude. In fact, it was at times difficult to even get them to focus up because like if I took my eyes off them for 1 second, they'd be like wrestling, playing soccer.
yeah.
It was like having like 8 golden retriever puppies. And they were just so
Greyhounds.
delighted to like be at Yankee Stadium in the middle of the night that they had such a positive attitude. Yeah, we had a few moments where like they were crashing. We were really crashing, you know, and I get it. It was so intense, but I do think everyone was just so happy to be there. And I had that spray bottle.
Love
and so anytime someone was starting to nod off, it was like, hey, you know.
Oh my God, yeah.
I think they might have hated me for it, but no, everyone was a trooper. Everyone pulled through. It was intense, but it was really, really rewarding as well.
You're watching Uptown Films, so keep watching films Uptown.
Hey there, I'm Nicole Tay, and you're watching Uptown Films.
Hi, my name is Sean Senavrotny, and you are listening to the Uptown Films podcast.
Hi, this is Alvaro Franco, and keep making films Uptown, and please keep showing Uptown some love.
Hi, my name is Zayn Lindsay, and you're watching Uptown Films.
Hey, this is Christopher Hall. Thanks so much for listening to the Uptown Films podcast.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. 2 quick things.
Yeah.
One, was that spray bottle ever turned on you?
I don't think they did.
I don't think it was necessary.
Yeah, also, like, you could not. Even after the shoot, it took me a few days to like sleep, like to rest. Like I just had adrenaline coursing through my body for so long. Like it was bad.
I love hearing that because it's not only just
Thanks.
it's
for
like because it's like when did you get bit by the bug to make films and like when are you
Yeah.
gonna make the next one
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
it becomes not saying addictive but
It is.
it's physically demanding but also you're thinking the entire time. You're the director, you're the writer. I wanted to ask specifically going back to to your DP. Can you tell us or speak about the way the tracking shots were done? Because they're going around in the circle, and the first few shots, I was like, "Oh, this is nice." Then I was like, "Oh, wait, there's like a good arc to this. This is cool."
Yeah, God, it's another thing where when I was writing the script, I never thought about how difficult it would be. Like when I first wrote At Night, I was like, yeah, I'll just grab a couple friends, we'll shoot this on my iPhone in Coney Island. dumb. Like, I did not realize, like the production and the budget just scaled exponentially very quickly with that film.
What was the budget range? I asked range. You never,
Buy me
filmmakers
dinner
never
first,
say.
Jesus. No,
Was it less than 20,000, less than 10?
it ended up being a little more than 20,000.
Okay, that's all you have to say. Now we know.
And I will say, like, the location, like Yankee, was a hefty chunk of that.
Yeah.
That really bumped us up a tier. But I will say, money well spent as far as it goes. Security, the safety of my crew, like, also like just once in a lifetime experience of being like, I own Yankee Stadium right now.
Yeah.
That was really cool. That was really, really cool.
That location makes it, yeah.
But yeah, and also shout out our executive producers who are the reason we were able to fund this film. But yeah, Michael Mitchell, Stephen Van Keston, Belinda Hill, and Ethel Johnson, thank you. And Carla McCormick, thank you.
Wait, what did you? Yeah, you mentioned before with iPhone, like you'll shoot on iPhone, get it over with. Wait, what did you shoot this on? I'm curious.
Okay, yeah. So
And, like, lenses
we
as well.
shot it on a Blackmagic.
Nice.
And the way we ultimately did the tracking, that was always going to be our biggest question, because at first I was so foolish. I was like, okay, we're going to shoot this at a public park. Well, NYC parks, they definitely have like golf carts, right? You always think about them seeing golf carts. And I was like, I bet that we could just like use one of their golf carts. I was such an idiot.
It sounds like supermarket, use a card, golf carts, same
so
principle.
stupid. Like, I was like, they're gonna let us use one of their golf carts to film the tracking, and I was like, of course they're not. They won't even let us use the park. Like, so
Yeah.
so then it was like, okay, what do we do? And like, we were looking at everything from like shopping cart to wheelbarrow of like, what can I strap a camera to and like follow a guy running at top speed. Ultimately, Christina caught wind of this guy named Sam Wood, who's a really, really talented DP and like Steadicam operator. And so the way we ultimately did the running was this guy Sam was on one of those one wheel like electric skateboards.
Nice.
And he had the full Blackmagic Steadicam rig strapped to him. So he was following, or the runners were following him. He was moving around the track with the runners. Meanwhile, Christina and I, we had a separate monitor like off-site, and Christina had a rig with literally that almost looked like a video game or like a claw machine where she could control the camera remotely. So Sam didn't have to worry about like, okay, pan to his face. Like for Sam, it was just like, don't die.
Yeah.
Like, point the camera,
Stay
and
upright.
don't fall off. But then Christina, when we needed the camera to do a really specific movement to go from one guy's face to another to keep focus, rack focus, Christina could do that remotely. And I could just watch the monitor like and freak out at how amazing it looked.
That's amazing.
That's
It's really,
pretty
really
awesome.
Yes.
It was really, really cool.
What lens wise? What did you?
Okay.
I'm not sure if you mentioned before. I may have.
Yeah, we used a variety of like Cine lenses. I know a lot of it, and this is like, you'll have to forgive me because I am, not a super technically inclined film person. I'm forgetting the name. A lot of like prime lenses, 35 millimeter, Fuse 16. I could tell you.
No worries. It looked phenomenal.
It
So-
really.
Thank
did.
you so much.
you're
I just want
welcome.
to say the wrong thing.
And if you shot it on Blackmagic, I'm assuming you did the color work in DaVinci.
Yeah, we had a really great colorist named Calvin Bellis.
Shout out to Calvin. Great job.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that was really great too. It ended up being a smooth process, and also like shout out Christina, because if I could give any advice to a director as well, I would say like keep your DP as involved as they want to be through the color stage, because especially if you've never done that before. Color is a completely different language. Like she might as well have been speaking like Swahili dialect. And I could just be like, hey, could it be a little more blue here? And she'd be like, Calvin, Gleek Glorp and the flip flop, blah, blah, and like, and he'd be like, oh yeah, of course. And I'd be like, oh, thank you for translating that. It was really, really amazing. I can't find the thing about the lenses,
all
but I
good.
will tell you retroactively.
But this is what I love about
delete that
filmmaking.
part.
It's so collaborative. It
Yeah.
takes, like, you need your DP involved early on, and then they need to remain past their their time is done in production and in shooting. It's so true. There's so many camera operators and DPs I work with who are like, oh, if we're going to shoot it this way in this situation, this LUT would work well, or this work well. You're like, oh, okay, great. It's so
Exactly.
amazing. Everyone, so many. I just love bringing different professionals of different walks together to make one project happen. And I just again, terrific film. And,
Yeah,
and
thank you.
You're welcome. I wanted to ask.
Yeah.
I met you and I slid into your LinkedIn DMs
In a
be-
non-creepy way.
in a non-creepy way because my nonprofit, Bronx Independent Cinema Center, we do workshops, and you led a phenomenal workshop at the Bronx Library
Thank you.
Center.
That was really fun.
You're welcome. On acquisition. So I wanted to ask, based on your background on acquisition and distribution, but mostly acquisition, how did that impact your, preparation, or how does it impact your outlook as a filmmaker?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I guess I for about like 3 years, I worked in the acquisitions department of a film distribution company. So my whole job was reading scripts, watching movies, and writing coverage, and just being like, should we buy this movie based on our mandates as a company?
Yeah.
That is an incredible job to have, certainly when you're kind of like just starting out, because it really makes you realize, and like we talk about this, like the hard part is not making the movie. It's everything that comes after. It's trying to get the movie sold, trying to make money, trying to pay people, ROI, all that stuff, getting your movie out there. That is the really hard part, in my opinion. And I will say, like, unfortunately, and the reason why ultimately I left that job is because as an artist, it is kind of soul crushing work.
I feel you.
Because every single creative choice has a price tag attached
Right,
to it.
right.
And like, we literally had a spreadsheet of like, this is what this actor is worth. This is what we are willing to pay for them. It was disgusting, but it's like, it's important. Like, these are the numbers that like make the business operate.
Yeah.
But, so I guess to that end, it really helped me understand that, like, even your work, this thing that's extremely personal to you, that you care so much about, anything can be reduced to numbers by someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing. It's funny you mentioned that, like, there's that phenomenon that artists go through of, like, working, like, the soul-crushing job that feels, like, so prescriptive and perfunctory and tied to money.
Yeah.
It's interesting you mentioned a job that, on its face, could seem so fulfilling, where you're literally reading a bunch of screenplays
Yeah.
and engaging with somebody's artistry, But that's really fascinating.
And it was rewarding. I learned so much as a writer, and I was exposed to so many films. I mean, I'm still like, movies that are coming out in theaters now, I'm like, oh, I read that script like 4 years ago, And so that's really, really cool. I'm very grateful for that job and how much I learned. And I'm not even at the stage in my career yet where I'm directly seeing the implications of like everything I did at that job, because I don't have like a feature yet. And it's like that shorts don't really exist in that universe, but I still think it's going to really help me, again, not to be too cynical about it, but filmmakers do really get taken advantage of in this business. And having kind of been on the other side and seeing how these meetings go, knowing what contracts look like, redlining, what all these terms mean, all the things that they're going to try to get you to overlook or not notice because they want to get as much money as possible. Like, I do think and hope that if I'm fortunate enough to ultimately enter that stage where I'm in negotiations with a company, like, I'm gonna know a little more going in than maybe other people would. But I also, and that's why I love doing the workshop, think it's really important that we demystify
I agree.
a lot of that language, because it really can be super predatory.
I wanted to ask, kind of pivoting from what happens after the film, going back to during the film, what was your favorite moment on set? Throughout all the chaos and the sleep deprivation and the spray bottle, what was your favorite moment on set?
It's so hard to pick just one.
Feel free to name more.
Thank you. Yeah. Immediate things that come to mind. I remember there was one night, maybe night one at Yankee. I think we were kind of on a break. We were like setting up the next shot. And I was with Christina looking at the monitor, going over logistics. And I like heard something. I heard this weird like, wah, wah, like in the background. I was like, what is that noise? And I looked over and like 50 feet away, the boys, the actors, were all huddled up and they were like doing this chant and they were like swaying and like this was not in the movie. Like,
Oh my
God.
God.
I was like, okay, they're like kind of like acting out. They're like doing the film, but like it was really weird. It was really beautiful though. And we can certainly get into casting. And like for me as a filmmaker, that I'm a filmmaker because I want to work with actors. That is like the number one thing for me.
Love that.
Exciting thing.
To look over and like see these 8 boys who most of whom did not know each other before this experience, to see them holding each other, being silly, was so rewarding for me. That was when I was like, okay, no matter what happens after this, like that's why I did this, was so like that moment could happen.
Yeah.
And then funnily enough, I ended up running up to them and I was like, keep doing that. I got on the ground on my back and I pointed my camera up, and that's what became the poster of the movie.
Oh my God, yes.
Was this
pretty awesome.
unscripted, and that was taken on my iPhone, like unscripted moment where they were in this huddle chanting. And it was so organic and so beautiful. And so that immediately kind of comes to mind as like that was the moment. But then also like seeing the sun rise over Yankee Stadium
Yeah.
Pretty awesome.
after the
Talk
first night
about
of
it.
shooting, that is actually, again, spoiler alert, the final shot of the movie. That was not the original ending of the movie. That was totally unscripted. The entire like everyone was gone. We'd broken down the entire set. It was pretty much just me, the director, and the actor. And I was like, guys, can we grab something in front of Yankee right now? And the sun was rising, and I've just never seen anything more beautiful. It was really incredible. And then that did end up becoming the ending of the movie.
Epic last shot.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, those are some immediate like, but it really was a delight. It was a joy. There was one moment where I could really feel the boys were crashing, like all of them, and I felt so, guilty over like what I was asking them to do and like whatever, that I was like, okay, fuck it, and I like took off my jacket and I was like, come on guys, like let's go run a lap, and all of us just like probably miserable and silent, just like ran a lap together. But by the end of that lap, and I think because I did it with them, and it was very like, there's nothing I would ask you to do that I wouldn't do myself. Like, I could feel at the end of that lap, like, all right, we're back. We're gonna be okay. We're doing this. So, yeah, so many fond memories. It was a beautiful experience.
It's pretty awesome. Like this, just sort of camaraderie you build with just a team of actors, and people behind the scenes. It's pretty inspiring. I mean, anytime I see like another filmmaker, attempt to make a short and, just like go for their art, their vision. It inspires me, especially at this level where, trying to find our way in and find our voice.
Yeah.
Yeah. A few more questions, couple more. The rapid fire ones we got here.
Sure. Before we get to that, I wanted to ask really quick.
Yeah.
Going back to your acquisition background, this movie, it's your second short. It's under 15 minutes. That's always a proverbial, get it under 15 minutes,
Right.
get into more festivals.
Exactly.
Before we get to Urban World, I wanted to ask, was that intentional, like to keep it, was there more you could have in the movie, or was that like, no, this is what you got?
That's a good question. So the original script was 17 pages, so about what you could transfer to 17 minutes. It was 17 pages. It used to have a giant monologue at the end, which is so funny to think about now because I'm like, what
can imagine
the
that,
hell? Like, but yeah, that was cut. And I think that ultimately, by the time we were shooting, brought the script down to 15 pages.
Nice.
And so I kind of knew also because like the way I have a very distinct way of writing screenplays that I wouldn't necessarily know how to describe, but I think if you were to read it, you'd be like, this, I've never seen a screenplay, whatever. Anyway, I knew that the way I had written it, I knew even though that the script was 15 pages, I was like, this is probably going to be only like 13 minutes of footage. Our initial cut was like 16 minutes, so I was kind of on that mark. honestly, very little was like cut, less than you'd think. I think there's only like one genuine like scene that was cut from the movie. Anything else was just like small trimmings, just like shaving down, just really getting in and out as quickly as possible. So yeah, I think our final runtime is like 13:57, including credits.
Right.
I didn't think too hard about that. Like, I do think if you are going into a short with festivals in mind, it's gonna trip you up more often than not.
Right.
Yeah, like you can, there are positive correlations, and you can be like, well, I'm more likely to get into more festivals if my short is under X. Like, yes, that's true, but like ultimately you got to make the movie you want to make. The festival circuit is brutal, and
Yeah, that's true.
like I've seen phenomenal shorts that like don't go anywhere, and so it's like you have to live with the movie. You have to make the movie you want to make because no one's gonna wait for you and like whatever.
Very well said. True.
So yeah, I mean, I kept some of those things in mind, but ultimately, like, it's a very visual story, and it's pretty tight and concise in what it is. I think there's a really clear beginning, middle, end. Yeah. So the final cut you see is pretty close to what the script was as well.
I loved it, and I for me now seeing it, and you said that you cut out a monologue. Seeing it, I'm like, great choice.
Yeah.
So what has the reception been like? Because you were at Urban World, and I'm so sorry I missed it.
No.
I feel bad. But what's the reception been like? How was Urban World Film Fest?
Urban World was incredible. That it was definitely a goal festival for me. Just because it's based here in New York, it's multicultural. They program from all over the world, which I really love. I felt that we would be a good fit there, so I was really gratified by the acceptance because it was like, okay, they agree, they feel the same. I really can't speak highly enough of that experience, and to anyone listening, like, Urban World is kind of a filmmaker's dream when you imagine going to a festival for the attention and devotion they give you and the support. I mean, we had a brunch at the WGA where we got to talk to WGA reps and WGA writers, and it was like, hey guys, like, here's how to protect your work. Here's what WGA minimums are. Like,
could you explain what WGA is for our listeners?
Sorry,
please?
yeah, the Writers Guild of America. And that was really illuminating. And then we also had a brunch with the DGA, the Directors Guild of America. Awesome. We had tons of networking events to meet the other filmmakers, which is kind of the reason you go to a festival, period, is to meet the other people who have been selected and who are working on the same things as you are.
Right.
Our screening was incredible. We had a sold out showing at Regal Union Square, a movie theater that over the past, 7-8 years that I've lived in New York, I've been regularly going to. So to see my short on that screen was absolutely insane.
That's pretty awesome.
And they also do like a red carpet, and like, I'm not as into like the kind of pomp and circumstance of all of that, but I will say I was really happy that my actors got to do that my team got to do that. And again, with all credit to Urban World and the press outlets that they collaborated with, people knew who we were. And, at a lot of festivals, the features kind of get preferential treatment, which is understandable.
Right. Yeah.
But the fact that someone who I didn't know was asking me questions about my movie, knew my name, knew what I was up to, was really respectful, really kind. I also think it's a really important exercise as an artist, especially a filmmaker, to be able to talk about your own work.
Yeah.
So even though I was very daunted, I don't love to like be in front of the camera like that. There's a reason I work behind it. It was really cool to get to experience that. Yeah. Amazing festival. Really amazing.
That's phenomenal. I'm so sorry I missed it, but it is.
No
You're so right.
worries.
Urban World is a filmmaker's dream, and it's for our listeners out there. It's annually. It's in November. Even if your film, like let's say you submit and it doesn't get in, you should still go and check it out. And
Yeah, the
it's
programming is excellent.
programming, the networking, and it's just an
parties,
experience. And
yeah.
I know those 4 consecutive overnights when you were at Urban World, like totally worth it.
Yeah, no, it did, especially to be able to have our whole cast and crew there. Well, unfortunately, 2 of our cast members could not come, but most of the cast and crew, all of our executive producers flew in for it. We also, for At Night, we didn't have a wrap party because we were all just so tired.
That's a cardinal sin.
We wrapped at like
you?
6 a.m. It was like, good night, get out of my face. You
Gotta
know?
schedule it that
Where's
next
my rap
weekend.
party?
Yeah,
And then it's
but
like,
Where's the booze?
It was like, give me a year. Urban World was the wrap party. It was the premiere was incredible, and then we did throw a sick after party sponsored by our executive producers, and that was really, it felt like the culmination of everything we had worked towards. So I have nothing bad to say about that experience.
Last 2 questions on your film, then we can go into rapid fire.
Yeah.
What did you learn? And then second question is, how did you get this lovely executive producer to get you the Yankee Stadium and pay for the rap party?
What did I learn? What didn't I learn? I mean, At Night was only my 2nd film, and it ended up being so much bigger than anything I'd ever done before. And even the cast and crew, for a lot of them, it was the biggest thing they'd ever worked on in terms of just budget and scope and scale, which is so funny because we still were a very small team.
yeah.
I mean, I think even with including the 8 actors, there were maybe like 24 of us. So like 16 crew members, like very small footprint for what we were doing.
Yeah.
A lot of people had to double up, wear a lot of hats. I'm very, very grateful. And so, I mean, what did I learn? Like I learned everything. Like it's not to exaggerate. I learned everything. I think if it was, what's the biggest like piece of wisdom I got that I would maybe impart on others is like, never be afraid to admit what you don't know.
Yeah.
You know, directing, I'm a very proud person, but like, I'm not that proud. Like you have got to like, let it go, leave your ego at the door. Your film will be better the more willing you are to say, I don't know. And the number of times, you know, leading up to the film in preparation, you know, Christina could be like, oh, do we want like this or this? And I'd be like, I'm sorry, like, what is that? And she'd be like, oh, no sweat. This is what it is. And now I know, you know, so like, that's what it is. Like, leave your pretensions behind.
Yeah.
People are here to help you. They want to help you. Be kind to them, be respectful, and like, always, you know, don't be afraid to say, like, can you explain this to me? You'll be better for it. As far as executive producers go,
The money. How did you get the money? The person with the money.
yeah, we did I did private fundraising. So like I didn't crowdfund. I literally just cold emailed people. And obviously there's a certain amount of privilege that comes with that. I recognize that like my parents and like my family and my parents have friends who've known me since I was a kid that obviously were in a socioeconomic position that they were able to help. I'm very fortunate. You know, I would never want to act like that was not the case, and that is not the case for everyone. Most of the people that donated to our film don't work in film at all, but there are people who knew me, who believed in me, you know, who just wanted to see it work. So yeah, I cold emailed people. I set up a pitch deck. I set up a Zoom call. And I pitched them the movie, and I was like, here are our tiers of donations. Based on your donation, you can have X title, X perks. It was not dissimilar to the way crowdfunding works.
Right.
I just didn't do public crowdfunding for just a few reasons, and that maybe it's just like worth a separate conversation. But yeah, again, I recognize that I was in a very fortunate position that I had a network of people who were in a position to donate. That is the biggest thing. Yeah. And then I just emailed them and I said, hey, can we talk?
Right.
Yeah.
I love it. That's how we connected. And I think that would be a terrific workshop. When not to do a crowdfunding campaign.
Yeah, you know, and again, I'm not above crowdfunding. Who knows what's going to happen next? But